There we go. Fantastic. Welcome to webinar number 5. Today's agenda, I'm going to do a quick overview of the Mission Mosquito campaign. Then Liz Burke is going to tell us about phenology, about active mosquito season, and show us a guide that she has been working on that I think is going to be absolutely phenomenal on phenology and be a huge help to you as you're working with mosquitoes and working with understanding how and when and why mosquitoes are active. Then I'll talk about preparing for active mosquito season and show you how you can make mosquito traps. Then Andrew is going to give you a tour. Andrew Clark will be giving you a tour of the just recently updated Globe Observer webpage, and we'll show you where you can access the directions for making the mosquito trap, as well as a lot of other resources. And then our spotlight today is going to be shining on Vicki Gorman's students in Medford, New Jersey, and I'll be sharing a little bit of information about how they are getting ready to look out for active mosquitoes in their region, and then we'll finish up with upcoming events. Next slide, please. So the Globe Mission Mosquito Campaign. This is a campaign in which we are connecting citizen scientists of all ages to monitor changes in the frequency, range, and distribution of potential disease vector mosquitoes. One more hit. And so we'll be talking about how you can be conducting research to explore how these vary in response to changes in environmental conditions. Next slide. Oh, and this is a fabulous fusion of the formal Globe education program and the Globe Observer program. This is really the bringing together of both of those programs. Next slide, please. So campaign participants can conduct their own research and contribute to the science outcomes of this campaign, which include doing basic scientific research that refines our understanding of mosquito ecology and behavior, as well as we are developing an extensive database that can be used by scientists who create and use models to develop early warning systems for potential disease outbreaks. Next slide. So there are 4 steps to the mosquito habitat tool. It really couldn't be easier. The thing I love to stress every time I talk with people is that you do not have to do all 4 of these steps in order to collect data. The first step everybody can be doing, even if there's snow on the ground right now, and that is identifying potential mosquito breeding habitats. You're basically taking your phone, you're taking pictures of standing water, whether it's artificial or natural, and the app will walk you through what are some of these sources of standing water, and you're taking pictures of them, just documenting that they exist. And if you can, you do step number 4 as well, because it's a great habit to get into, and you eliminate the breeding site. Another step is to sample and count. If you are lucky enough to see any mosquito larvae, and I just happen to have a big plastic one with me right now, or some mosquito eggs, or the absolutely adorable mosquito pupa, you can sample and count. How many? Sample simply means you scoop some out, and then you using a kind of a turkey baster, and then you say, here's how many I count in this sample. And if you do have these mosquito larvae, then you can use a cell phone magnifier or a microscope, and you can work on identifying the type of mosquito larva that you have found. So super easy, 4 steps, and again, you don't have to do all 4 steps. Next slide, please.
Dorian, Bertha has her hand raised for a question. I'm going to allow her to talk, so Bertha, you should be able to ask your question to Dorian.
I know sometimes it's Bertha is joining us from Ghana, and yesterday we were chatting a little bit using Zoom, and sometimes the connectivity went in and out. So Bertha, if you want, you can write the question in the chat box if that is.
I don't have question.
Okay, very good. Well, we are delighted to have you join us. Thank you, though, Cassie. Next slide, please. So through this campaign, there are 3 overarching science goals that we would like to achieve. And this is where you are instrumental in helping us to achieve these. And being able to actively determine when mosquitoes are starting to be active is a huge help in answering these questions. So the first thing we strive to do is to identify the baseline from 2018 through 2021 for the range and distribution of vectors, meaning the mosquitoes, such as the Aedes aegypti, the Aedes albopictus, and we're also looking at the culex. Another important foci is to identify the seasonality of local mosquito vectors. And here's where what we're doing today is super important. When is your first sighting? When is your last sighting? When is the period of your greatest number of observations? Helping us get a feel for the spatial and temporal distribution of these mosquitoes. And then the other foci, the third foci, is to quantify change in mosquito frequency and distribution at local, regional, national, and global scales, with specific reference to the prevailing environmental parameters. And here, those of you who are globe teachers should be hearing, I hear the word protocol being used here when we talk about environmental parameters, such as precipitation, land cover, surface temperature, and soil moisture. So all of these are going to be important data to help us better understand the world's most dangerous animal, which does happen to be the rotten little old mosquito. Next slide, please. All right, what we're going to do next is we have 2 poll questions. We're going to try out our poll function. You're going to see the question and have 30 seconds to respond, and then we will share the answers with everybody. So we'll go ahead and let Cassie put the poll questions on. Thank you so much. When is it active mosquito season where you live? And you find your answer. I'm going to go ahead and in my case, I'm going to say it's active mosquito coming in the next few months. Click the one that is right for your region. Then the second question says, from the list below, what factors seem to influence mosquito activity in your area? And you have a choice of temperature, precipitation, growth of vegetation, humidity, soil moisture, all of the above or none of the above. So go ahead and put your answers in there and click submit. And we'll give everybody about 30 more seconds. And then our master of technology, Cassie, will show us what the results are for the 39 participants who we have on today. And hello, Marta from Buenos Aires. Nice to have you. We really have people from all over the world today. So we'll see how many of us have active mosquitoes in their locations right now. And what factors seem to influence having these mosquitoes. And hello, Nadia. All right, let's go ahead and see what we came up with. Interesting. So many of us who are on this call are expecting mosquitoes over the next few months. Those of you who are expecting mosquitoes over the next few months, I do hope that all of you will make mosquito traps and send me a picture of you with your mosquito trap, and I'll send you a permission form, and then we can put up these wonderful pictures of all of you who have not yet had active mosquitoes in your area, showing your really cool mosquito traps. And the factors that, and some of you, about a fifth of us, actually get to enjoy mosquitoes all year long. So we hope to see some of your observations coming in and showing us where you're finding these mosquitoes. And if you get a chance, we'd also love to see you attempting to identify the types of mosquitoes that you're finding. And as far as the parameters that seem to be impacting when people are having mosquitoes in their area, we can see here that almost 3/4 of the folks say that it's generally all of the above. It seems to be kind of a conflux of these different factors. So very neat. Thank you so much for participating actively in the poll. And next, we're going to be hearing from Liz Burke, telling us about mosquito phenology and this new phenology guide that she has been working so hard on.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Liz Burke. I am a retired high school science teacher and have worked for IGS for several years, and now I'm proud to be part of the Mission Mosquito team here. So in looking over those responses that you guys just posted on those polls, some of you, a constant mosquito season, and we pretty much know probably where you are located. You're going to be in the tropical areas. We got that figured out. But a lot of you said that you're still kind of awaiting the start of your season. I know you're pretty anxious about that. Hang tough. It will happen. But all you need to do really is read your newspaper or listen to your local weatherman or newsman, and they'll give you the date. They'll give you the date of when mosquito, like a week from tomorrow or April 10th or something. And then you'll know. Then you'll know you can get some stuff done before mosquito season. But wait just a second. There is no starting date to the mosquito season. You'll never see it posted anywhere. There is no date by which you can expect to see mosquitoes. It varies, and it varies every year it's different, and in every place it's different. So of all the people on this webinar, we're not even going to come close to matching mosquito seasons. So as you also indicated in the poll, there are some reasons for that, and you're kind of keen on those. The one that we're going to focus on today, as I talk about this for a few minutes, is going to be temperature. Temperature, air temperature in particular, is what we're going to be looking at. So the Mission Mosquito team has developed an investigation that's going to focus on your local mosquito season, your mosquito population. So we need your help. We need your help getting some really important data here. So here's your assignments. We need some things. Here's what we need. We would like to know when your mosquito season starts. We want a date. We want to know when your mosquito season ends. We would like a date. We would like to know the temperatures in your area leading into mosquito season, the start of mosquito season, throughout the duration of your mosquito season, and when your mosquito season ends. We'd also like a little bit of information about abundance of mosquitoes during the season, the intensity of the population, and we would also like a little bit of information on the species. What kind of species are you seeing, and are those different species from what we're seeing in other areas? So that's what we're asking you to help us out with here. And so in doing this, what you will be doing is investigating phenology. Phenology, maybe you're familiar, maybe not so familiar with the term. It's really pretty easy. Phenology is the study of the timing of events in the life cycle of a living thing, and in this case, mosquitoes. Mosquitoes go through several steps in their life cycle, right? I mean, Dorian just talked about that again. We've talked about that several times. They lay eggs, so they spend some time as an egg. That egg changes into a larva. The larva then changes into a pupa, and the pupa then changes into the adult. The adult emerges from that pupa. 4 stages in the life cycle. Each one of those stages has a starting point and an ending point. That egg is not going to stay an egg forever. It will be laid, and at some point, it will hatch into a larva. The larva will have it's usually just a few days, but it will have a period of time when it starts that phase and ends that phase and then becomes the pupa. The pupa has a starting and ending part to its phase, and then the adult obviously has a starting and ending point. That's phenology. That's what we're looking at. We're not probably going to break it down into looking at the individual 4 little steps, but what we are going to look at is the start of your mosquito season. So when you see adults in the environment where you are, and then looking at the larvae, looking at the pupa, and then looking at the adults and when those adults cease to show up in your local environment. Each of these 4 steps is called a phenophase. So there are 4 phenophases. And those are we'll use that term, and you'll see that term in the guide that I'm going to talk about here in just a few minutes. But each of those, the arrival, going through those steps, and the departure of mosquitoes from your area is so unique to your area. It is unique to your weather conditions. It is unique to your location. So it's important to you locally why you have a mosquito season and when it is. That's important to your local environment. So who would want to know that in your local environment? The people who live there, right? Mosquitoes are a huge topic of conversation all summer long. I live in Alaska. It's a huge topic of conversation. Oh, they're so terrible. Last night was awful. Well, I wanted to go down to the movie in the park, but man, the mosquitoes were horrible. I chose not to go. So it's important to the people. It's important to your city government. They have to budget into your city budget how they're going to pay for the insecticides that they're going to be spraying. Then they have to figure out when they're going to spray, how often, how much. It's important to the city that you live in. And it's also important to the health institutes in your area. It's important to the community health, because mosquitoes get a hold of and then transfer to humans some viruses and some parasites that may not be too bad, but some of them are horrific. So that's why people want to know. That's why you doing the study is so important, and we need your help. And it all boils down to, what this all boils down to is climate change. The climate is changing, and we want your help in figuring out, is it impacting your locality? Are they coming earlier than they have been in the past? Are they staying later? Are the numbers just like crazy big this year? And what about those diseases? Are you seeing more of those? Do you hear more reports about those? So it's all tied to climate change, and that is so important, and that's important globally. So it's a local issue. We need your help locally, but it's also going to impact things globally. And we can make some big contributions to some global research. So we want you to join us in this investigation. This is all we need from you. We need to know when they show up in your local environment, how long they're there, what happens when they're there. I mean, does the population get really big at certain times and kind of fade in and out a little bit? And we want to know when it's over. But we also need some hard numbers. We need your numbers. What numbers? We need your temperatures. The temperature is critical. We're trying to make the tie-in to temperatures. We also need the dates. We need you to record dates. It's got to be done by date, by temperature, and observations at your study sites. So that's what's critical. And I'll remind you of one other thing at this point, because we talk about this often in relationship to these mosquito studies. No data, if you say, we got nothing, that's so important to us. It's important to your study. So you're looking at these days and we're going to ask you to go out soon and get started. In a lot of areas in Alaska, I'm going to record a lot of zeros. 0. I went out yet tomorrow. 0. I go out the next day. 0. Those zeros are really important, because at some point we're going to run into, I saw one. I saw an adult mosquito. Things are starting to happen. The zeros leading up to that tell us nothing happened until this date and this temperature. So please record your zeros, watch your traps or your sites, and start giving us that information. We want to determine the duration of your season, and we want to determine the intensity of your season. And then this study is going to go on for a few years, right? Dorian just mentioned this goes through 2021. We can get some historical data. And so here is where this is going to be perfect for you as a teacher, as an educator. If you live in the tropics and your season is constant, you can give us dates, you can give us temperatures, and let us see those fluctuations in what's happening in your mosquito population, what's happening. You can make notes in your observations related to diseases in your area. Critical information. For those of us that will be starting mosquito season soon, this is perfect for you. You are now sliding into the end of your school year, at least for most of us in the Northern Hemisphere. I know in the Southern Hemisphere, you're a little bit different. So you can make these adjustments in your mind as I describe this here for what would be me in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm closing off my school year. I'm starting my phenology investigation. I'm going to get some zeros. I'm going to see the start of mosquito season. It will happen in March, April, May, June, one of those months while I'm still in school. So I can mark the start. I can see the increase in that population. I can maybe even see some fluctuations. And by doing it now, I can probably turn some kids on to continuing this over the summer. I can get them so interested in this, so involved in this, that I can hook them into some summer work. And they can be out there checking those sites or those traps and gathering data over the summer. We will meet back in the fall, again, a Northern Hemisphere thing, so stay with me, but we'll meet back in the fall and we'll watch the decline of mosquito season, and we can catch that date at which we no longer see them. So it's perfect for us to, in the Northern Hemisphere, to catch that seasonal thing. So we want you to jump in. We want you to help us. It's so easy. Download the app. You've probably already downloaded the app. Review those temperature protocols on the Globe site. Won't even take you much time. Select some study sites. Get out there now and look around. We'll talk more about that. Build a trap. Dorian's going to talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. Get a few supplies. A turkey baster. I bet you've got one in your drawer in the kitchen. Get a thermometer. A thermometer, you probably have one at school. A magnifier for your phone is going to come in handy, so start looking around for that. And start your phenology notebook. You're going to want to keep a notebook. You've got lots of data to collect, and keeping it all in one notebook, perfect, perfect. So we'll give you more details as we get going on this. It'll start next week. You'll see it on the site. You can go to that. So check that out. It is important work that we're asking you to do. Your data is going to be so valuable to this project. We want you to be active. We want you to be engaged. You'll need to monitor and observe and record all scientific processes that we want your students to have experience with and contribute to. So together we can establish a history of very important data in your area, extrapolate it into a range of areas, and see how it compares to what scientists are already gathering. Help them out with some of their studies. So if there's anything we can do to help you do that, let us know. We're excited to get started. So check the site next week. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Liz, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and Lee, respond to a question that you asked. Lee, before I do that, thank you for your enthusiasm, Liz. You are just, I feel like you're just leading the charge. Let's go, go, go. Well done. And we really appreciate it. And the guide that you've created has lots of great information that will answer all kinds of questions. Lee asked, would it also be useful to be collecting data on the weather, temperature, precipitation, those types of things? And Lee, the answer is yes, most definitely. In the guide that Liz has created, she actually has a data sheet where you will be doing that. And that also, you must have kind of like read my mind, because a little bit later in this webinar, I will be talking about some of the GLOBE protocols, which are ways of collecting environmental data that so easily will blend in with this investigation to help you to be able to determine which of these environmental parameters seem to be important in knowing when active mosquitoes are going to be around. So sweet, way to go. And if we could have the next slide, please. So we talked a little bit about some of the things you can do for those 70% of you who have not yet had the joy of being bitten by mosquitoes this season. A couple of different things that you can do. One is making and setting out mosquito traps, and I'll be showing you how we can make these mosquito traps. Safety precautions, because of course that's very important. We are talking about the world's most dangerous animal that we're working on reducing, so it's important that we practice good mosquito hygiene. There's a picture of my nieces over there spraying each other with some insect spray. And we also want to be collecting data. So thank you, Lee. You can see in the picture, there are some students that have a rain gauge, and they have an instrument box. That's what the white box is there. And inside that instrument box, they have a digital thermometer that's giving them the high temperature, the low temperature, and the average temperature, and collecting that 6 days at a time. So those data are super important to help us really find these causal relationships. And they're pretty fascinating as well. Next slide, please. So with these mosquito traps, they're really easy to make. We'll show you how you get to the directions for making them. And you will be able to then set up some sites for the ongoing monitoring of mosquito breeding. When you monitor these potential mosquito breeding habitats, you're helping scientists to identify the conditions under which mosquitoes thrive, which helps us to forecast disease outbreaks and also helps us to, when possible, reduce those conditions or eliminate those conditions so we don't have so many mosquitoes biting us. So the directions for the activity that I'm going to demonstrate for you in just a minute here are on the Globe Observer site, and Andrew will be demonstrating where you can find them next. Next slide, please. So to make a mosquito trap, we're going to use, and I'll go full screen in just a minute, we're going to use an empty 2-liter soda bottle. We have some netting or mesh that I have an X-Acto knife, or you could have scissors. I've got a little rubber band. I've got a little bit of tape here. I have some black paper that I cut. I have a little bit of sandpaper, which actually is just on an emery board, works perfectly here. And then I have something called bait water. So I'll be showing you what this is all about. I have to move my computer down here so that I can do my demonstration, and let me bring my soda bottle up where you can see it. So thank you so much, Cassie. Again, you are just amazing. So here I have a 2-liter soda bottle. Easy enough to find. It's a great idea to make a couple of these so that you can try out some different types of bait water and also look at some different locations. So one thing you might want to do if you're not somebody like I'm not somebody who drinks a lot of soda, you can just tell people I am currently trying to collect these 2-liter soda bottles and ask if they'll bring in donations. So you will take your 2-liter soda bottle, you will take a sharp implement. You may want to do this instead of your students. I'm sure that you are capable human beings and know if they are able to do this or not. Something I've done with students before is I may start the cut and then give them scissors to use to finish cutting. That works well. But in any case, you're going to go ahead and cut your 2-liter bottle about 1/3 of the way up. In my case, with this Sprite bottle, it happened to be where the label ended. And magic, look how fast I cut it. Want to have it ready. So now I have 2 different parts. This is my reservoir, and this is kind of my funnel. I'm going to remove this little piece here because we're not going to need that top. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that emery board I have, or it could be sandpaper, and I'm going to just stuff up the shoulder of this funnel here. And it's kind of, whoa, come back here, funnel. It's for kind of a fascinating reason. So it turns out that the types of mosquitoes that we're most interested in being able to attract, the ones who we want to tell them, hey, this is an optimum habitat for you mosquito moms to come and lay your eggs in. The mosquitoes that we're trying to learn more about and attract are the ones that transmit the majority of the mosquito-borne diseases. So your culex, your Aedes aegypti, your Aedes albopictus. Sometimes they're referred to as flood mosquitoes because what they like to do is they like to find a location that's near water, but perhaps not already underwater, particularly if it's near the end of the season. For those of us who aren't in active season all the time, temperatures are getting colder. These mosquitoes have, unfortunately, adapted their behavior so that they're able to survive. So one of these adaptations is that they like to lay their eggs near the standing water, and they like to find a place where the eggs could kind of sit there until it rains a lot and there's flooding conditions, which then take these dehydrated eggs and then they become hydrated and then they can develop. So that's why we've scuffed up the inside just a little bit, just so that it makes it a little bit sticky for those eggs to stick to. The mom's going to be like, yes, this is a fabulous place for me to lay my eggs. Then you're going to take your mesh. What I did is I went to my local craft store. I found for less than $10, I found 50 strips, which would make hundreds of mosquito traps. Of this tool, which is, I guess in this case, this is used for like weddings if you're making favors. I'm going to put it kind of close to show you how small the holes are. This is about a 2 millimeter grid gauge on here. Basically what I'm hoping to do, what I'm going to do, is in case my mosquito trap is successful and adult mosquitoes hatch, they can get in, but they can't get out. So they will be stuck on that mesh there. So now I'm going to take my rubber band. I'm just going to put it around the top here a few times. Now I've got my mesh in place. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I need to have some bait water in my reservoir. One of the best types of bait water is rice water. So if you were to take some rice and you want to rinse it before you cook it, and you have the water sitting in the rice for an hour or so, then you just take that water that the rice was in, and you can dilute it some if you like to, and just pour it in the bottom of your trap. Now, you do not have to use rice water. You can use any kind of water. You can use pond water. You can take tap water and put some grass in it. We have many suggestions in the document that tells you how to make your trap. But one of the things that Dr. Lowe's students found when they were experimenting with some different variables was that this rice water seemed to be very attractive to mosquitoes. So what I'm trying to do here is have the level of the water come where it just about hits that net. So I'm going to pour in a little more water, and now I'm going to put this in here so that it hits that netting there. And again, what my hope is that mommy mosquito's flying along. She looks and says, oh, what a fascinating place to lay the eggs. She lays the eggs in there, the eggs fall through when it rains, and then lo and behold, I come and I check out my trap, and I see that I have some larvae that are swimming along the top there. Perhaps I even see a pupa or two. And if I just forget to check my trap every week, or we've just, I miss one of them, the mosquitoes, if the adult mosquitoes are hatched, they cannot get out because they'll be stuck with that netting there. Another thing you want to do, because again, we're trying to make this optimum for the mom mosquito, you might take some black paper, because they're looking for kind of a dark, shady location to lay their eggs. So you might take some black paper and put it around your trap. That paper, once it's outside and gets wet, it will look kind of crummy, but that's okay. The mosquitoes don't care. They're simply looking for what would be a perfect location to lay their eggs. You are looking for a location that is not going to be too close to where people are, because we're not looking to have people be bit by these adult mosquitoes that are flying around. And you're also looking for a location that's kind of shady, because we don't want the water to just burn off. And also the adult mosquito moms are looking to find places where their mosquito eggs are most likely to hatch and they're most likely to be successful. So if we can have our slides back, please. I hope that looked easy enough for everybody to say, I'm going to go out and make 5 of these and try to figure out which appear to be most attractive and which type of bait appears to be most attractive to getting mosquitoes to come in my area. I want to tell you a few more things about these mosquito traps and being prepared for active mosquito season. Next slide, please. So baiting your traps, and in the directions you'll find this information. Alfalfa pellets, which are what are often used if you have guinea pigs, are something that have been experimented with. Fish food, particularly fish food that doesn't smell too fishy, seems to attract mom mosquitoes, that rice water, the pond water. So experiment, let us know what you find. That would be absolutely fascinating if we could be comparing and contrasting these different types of bait that people are using. Next slide, please. Some tips and tricks. So the bait is what draws the female in, and attracts her to lay her eggs. And, again, when it rains, the eggs will fall through the mesh, and then even if they become adults, they won't be able to get away. Try to cover it with black paper. Another idea is to take a black nylon stocking that you're not using anymore, if you have big black socks, and put those over there. Try to check your trap at least once a week and see if you have larvae. Next slide. Each site should have 1 or more traps set up, and then report your observations at least weekly. I love this idea. I think Cassie came up with it, and that is, why not have Mosquito Mondays? I mean, what could be more fun? Kids will be really stoked about coming back to school if they know that they'll get to go around and check their mosquito traps and see if they can find any really cool, albeit rather disturbing looking mosquito larvae. When reporting your observations, it's important that you don't dump out all of the water and eliminate the habitat. That's one thing we're doing differently. We're not trying to eliminate these. But let's say you look and you see some larvae in there. You take your handy dandy turkey baster, which you didn't grab from your kitchen. You bought another one so that you can use that for just going in, collecting your sample, counting how many larvae, seeing if you happen to have any pupa as well. Perhaps you might even see that you have some eggs. And then you'll dump this water out, put in some new bait water, and start again. Do it again and again and again. Let's see how many active sightings of mosquito larvae you can do within a season. Next slide, please. Safety precautions. These traps are used to lure mosquitoes. We're hoping that these are going to prove to be these optimal habitats for the mosquito moms to come lay their eggs. So therefore, you want to select some quiet places that are not near where like benches at schools or places where people would normally come and be sitting. These are things also you could have your students create and find a couple of places in their yard and place them around and be collecting their data and sharing their data in. When checking traps, remember, if possible, to wear your insect repellent, your long sleeves, because of course you may have some adult mosquitoes hanging around. Now, if there are any adult mosquitoes, if they have managed to hatch, all you have to do is swirl your water around and just kind of drown them. And then you can remove this mesh top and go ahead and do your sampling and try to identify your larvae. Next slide. So, as Lee had mentioned earlier, there are lots of, and also Liz had let us know, there are some variables, some globe protocols and tools that collecting this data will be very, very useful to compare and contrast which of these environmental parameters, which of these variables seem to be most important when you have mosquitoes. I know for where I live, for the most part, temperature seems to be important. Once it gets to be above 50 degrees, and in Liz's phenology guide, she has some really good information about degree days and how those are used, then that is one of the real telling factors as to when we're going to start to be annoyed by active mosquito season. Of course, the hydrosphere, that will help you to take a look at some of the different water variables. Precipitation, back to the atmosphere, is really important. Relative humidity. When we're talking about the pedosphere, soil moisture, soil temperature, and the biosphere, boy, would Peter Nelson love to start seeing more land cover observations coming in. And that's a great way to be comparing and contrasting what's happening with your land cover and when you're seeing active mosquito season. So all of these are various protocols that can be used. You do not have to use all of them. It's a cafeteria a la carte menu. You pick and choose the ones that work best for you. Next slide, please. So these are some of the sample investigations that you could have your students do with these traps. These would be absolutely phenomenal science fair investigations. So when did mosquito larvae first appear in your trap? And when during the year do you find the most larvae? You're doing your sampling, you got your turkey baster, and you're finding out when do you see the most. How does the number of larvae change over the year from month to month? Excellent math activity. Is there a difference in the number of larvae observed that is suggesting that the mosquito habitat mapper might be effective in eliminating some of these local breeding sites? And one more idea we had, and of course you and your students will probably come up with a whole lot more ideas. And again, I would love if you email me some of the various investigative questions that you come up with that you feel could be answered or you have found can be answered by your students. And then what kind of trap bait works best for mosquitoes? Next slide, please. When you put your mosquito trap in your yard or your school and you monitor it during the mosquito season, you're providing temporal data, so data based on the time periods, about how the number of mosquitoes change over time in one place. And as Liz mentioned earlier, finding no mosquito larvae is also very important data. 0 is data. And so be sure that you record your findings every week, even if you're not seeing any larvae. That way you're also going to be prepared and know exactly when active season begins. Next slide. Reporting your data. Here's something that's really neat. On the cell phone app, if you are using a mosquito trap, when you are using the app and you identify which water source you're using, you will find this in the app. So when you're looking under water sources, it has as one of the possibilities that it is a container. Then you go to where it says other. Once you go into the other, now you're going to see a new screen, and on there, mosquito trap is one of the options. So you will pick mosquito trap and then take a picture of your mosquito trap. And next slide, please. So you take a picture of the trap and we'll know its location because it's geolocated on your phone. You'll indicate whether or not you found larvae in your trap, the usual sampling that you can do, and note if you see eggs, pupa, or adult mosquitoes. Then use the comment section. So there's a comment section that you'll see in the app, and you can record things that will help you also to know how long has the trap been in operation, 3 weeks, 4 months. If you baited it, perhaps, trap number 1 is the one that's baited with rice water, and any other notes that you think will be helpful. And then they'll always be right there in the app in your observations. Next slide, please. And we're going to stop. No, we'll continue with these part, and then Andrew will take us on a quick tour. So Globe teachers and students are looking out for active mosquitoes. Next slide, please. I reached out to a couple of my Globe friends around the world and asked them, when are you expecting active mosquito season, and what are you and your students doing to make these observations? So Marcus, who is with us right now from Uzwil, Switzerland, he says that traditionally they don't get mosquitoes up there where he is until late May or even June. And they usually don't even bother you until you've had your first series of really mild evenings, and they normally don't bite before it's dark. But within the last few years, and as Liz mentioned, we're really, really interested in being able to get a feel for the impact of our changing climate. They're starting to see more and more Asian tiger mosquitoes, which are more aggressive and will bite you and are vectors of mosquito-transmitted disease. So he is thinking that as the warming continues, they're going to start to see outbreaks of these diseases. And so it will be extra important for people that haven't had to worry about emptying their containers of water on a regular basis to be vigilant. Next slide, please. I also asked Vicki Gorman from Medford, New Jersey, and she said, well, we can't always rely on Puxawani Phil. He is this groundhog that on February 2nd, it's a joke. We do it for fun. It's just a custom. No, people do not believe in America that groundhogs forecast the weather. But it's just a funny thing where the groundhog comes up and you say, if it sees its shadow, then you'll have more winter or that spring will come. It helps. It is a myth, and it is kind of a custom that you pretend that it helps you to know when it's going to be spring. So she says, because you can't rely on that groundhog, where they are, they're tracking temperature, rain, and they're using the eye test. They're looking for mosquitoes. And her students have seen adult mosquitoes last week. While they're waiting for this active mosquito season to begin, they are keeping track of 2 or 3 different potential breeding sites around the school. They're looking at these sites twice a week to see if they see any activity, and they found some stagnant water the other day. So they're excited. I like the exclamation marks because it is exciting when you're out there making these observations. You're a scientist and you're out there looking for evidence that mosquitoes are starting to become active. And next slide. And these are some quotes from some students whom I've been working with, Jeff Bauman students in Gibraltar, Michigan. Again, I just asked them, when are you anticipating that you're going to start to see active mosquitoes, and what kind of data are you collecting? So they say they're highly certain and expecting to see mosquitoes in the next 2 months. They think mosquitoes will begin to get active in the next 2 months because temperatures will consistently be 50 degrees or higher, and that's Fahrenheit. And mosquitoes also thrive on humidity, so the mosquitoes will tend to be in more humid and hot areas. So thank you very much, and the rest of you, please send me emails letting me know when you're anticipating mosquito season and how you and your students, or you and other citizen scientists that you're working with, are trying to anticipate that. And next, we're going to have Andrew Clark take us on a quick tour of the updated Globe Observer website. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So we've got a fresh release of the observer.globe.gov, which is the companion website to the Observer app. And I will share my screen for this quick walkthrough. All right. With the Observer app, of course, there are a number of different tools or protocols that are included with the app. And we have resources both for independent observers. So perhaps someone downloads the app and they're looking to participate, or if you're an educator and you're looking for resources to bring some of your students along with you. So these new, just want to be able to see the chat. Okay. So in the website, we have organized it into a few different sections. So the Do Globe Observer has resources that would be helpful to someone unaffiliated with a teacher or a leader that might be able to help them learn more. If you are leading groups of learners, we have specialized toolkits for the different protocols. So in our case, we're with Mission Mosquito, we're using the Mosquito Habitat Mapper tool. And we've got a toolkit full of resources that could help you, pull off a successful event. So you'll find a lot of materials and presentation tips. And there's also a few different pages of a resource library. So here, again, just through its lead a program, Mosquito Habitat Mapper, and then we've got different collections of resources for you. So in the activities section, here is the Build a Mosquito Trap that Dorian just walked everyone through. This is step-by-step instructions on how to go through that process in case you need a refresher, or you want to share it with some other folks. Here's a good set of instructions. We've also got a few printable resources like these mosquito tellers, which come in a few different versions. And those are always successful and popular. They're like the fortune tellers that you might have seen kids playing with, but they're specialized for mosquitoes and learning material about mosquitoes and the different species that are being studied. And then we also have resources for a bingo game if you are just trying to familiarize everyone with the different habitats that these mosquitoes can live in. So it's not just, standing water in an old tire. They can live in all sorts of unexpected places. So make sure you're sampling in all of those places. And then in addition to the activities, we have a selection of books, videos, and presentations, and then promotional materials if you need to present this, your activities as something to, bring a little more attention to your organization or to your event. We have those resources as well. So we've got both adult and children level books and a number of different videos that are all related to mosquito science with NASA and Globe. And then selection of presentations. This is almost more for your background. These are presentations from the Master Trainer Day. I mean, it's a pretty involved set of presentations, but you will know quite a lot about the protocols and how to pull off a successful event. So again, it's just observer.globe.gov. And then you can also share, of course, the resources for independent observers. And there is some overlap, but you will see, we have more information. You'll be able to see, news events and people that are involved in these projects. So take a look at it, and I'd be happy to hear any feedback if there's something that you were looking for and had a hard time finding, or that you were looking for and could not find. So I'll put my email in the chat because, this just came out this week. So any input, super valuable. So thank you.
Andrew, thank you so much. And thank you also for letting everybody know that we really do value collaboration, communication, and we want to make sure that we are providing you with the tools that you need to get off and running. So if you're starting to do these activities, with students, and you feel like, wow, this would be helpful to me to have, I wonder if this resource exists, reach out to us and we'll let you know if perhaps the resource has been developed. And if it hasn't, you'll give us some great ideas for more resources that we can create. Andrew, that's a fabulous website. Thank you so much for taking us on a quick tour. And if I could have my slides up, please. I'm hoping that as you see these and listen to the different people who've been presenting and saw some of the ways in which and when the students and teachers from around the world are anticipating active mosquito season, I'm hoping you're looking at this and saying, wow, this is easy. I can get involved. This really looks interesting. So I try to have a spotlight every month where I share and celebrate some of these successes and the ways in which our fellow collaborative teachers and citizen scientists are using this app and working with either their students or using the app and working by themselves as a citizen scientist or with others. So here we have Vicki Gorman, and she presented actually last month and did a fabulous job with her middle school students talking about how they are thinking of using drones in order to help them with their investigation, or they're not just thinking, they're going to. But I wanted to share a little bit of information, a little more in-depth information on how they're preparing for and anticipating active mosquito season and the research that they did in making this be applicable to them. So they live in that little red section there of New Jersey, which is on the eastern coast, kind of midway between, say, Florida and Maine on the East Coast. And they did some research to find out which types of mosquito-transmitted diseases have been found in their region. And next slide, please. So they found a brochure, and it was great too because they gave me a copy of, they made a digital picture of this brochure. And when you look at it up close, it's great because it gives some information on where which mosquito type borne transmitted diseases have been found in New Jersey, and some of the ways in which people can be prepared for active mosquito season, some of the preventative measures that they can take. What they found when they did their research was that there are two most prevalent diseases that are found in their area: West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis. And they also found out that there were 44 cases of West Nile fever in the New Jersey area, 3 of which were fatal. They also found out that people traveling back and forth on a regular basis can be a variable that is important when we're looking at mosquito transmitted disease. And because they're within 1 to 3 hours of many, many airports, that also creates some entrance points for overseas travelers who perhaps didn't realize that when they had been bit by a mosquito as they were sunning on the beach somewhere, that mosquito perhaps transmitted a virus to them, and they might be able to, if another mosquito of the same species were to bite them in the, wherever they come back to New Jersey, then that mosquito could potentially transmit that disease to other people. So it's important to be keeping track of people who are showing up with any kind of disease, but particularly vector-borne diseases, mosquito-transmitted diseases, to get a feel for where did they get it from. So two teams of students from her school have decided to conduct an investigation to try to determine when and where the Culex genus mosquitoes might be breeding, because these are the ones that transmit both West Nile and East equine disease. And so they found that these mosquitoes like stagnant water and can lay their eggs in very shallow water. They also found out that the other 2 types types of mosquitoes that transmit dangerous diseases, Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, have also been found now in New Jersey. And next slide. So they did their research, and they found that these mosquitoes are often found in containers and in sheltered areas like the rain barrel that they had pictured there. And that one of the students took a picture of that, and that was a part of their data set that they submitted. Next slide, please. So the research teams are excited to be looking for mosquitoes, but in New Jersey, winter means cold temperatures. So this right now has been the inactive or dormant season for mosquitoes. But in the research that the students did, they found out that mosquitoes can actually hibernate during cold temperatures. So even though it's winter, some mosquitoes can still be around. They are using the mosquito habitat mapper regularly and collecting and reporting their data. And we'll be checking in with them and other teams next month and asking them to share some of the results of their data, because they will by then have submitted their science projects to the, or just about be ready to be submitting their science projects to the International Virtual Science Symposium. Next slide, please. So we wanted to finish up with just telling you about some of our upcoming events. We have 2 different types of webinars: citizen science focused webinars and education focused webinars. Every and anyone is invited to all of these webinars. The more the merrier. You don't have to be an educator to attend these, and you don't have to be doing citizen scientists to attend the others. Sometimes we overlap, but often we give some different types of information. And you also hopefully are on our newsletter list and got our newsletter, which was sent out today. If you didn't get our newsletter, please send me an email with your email address. We will put you on our list, or you can use the link that I put up above showing where you can get our newsletter and be on our mailing list, but we'll make sure that we get you our latest newsletter. And I think that's my last slide. And get involved. Okay, there we go. So get on our newsletter and webinar mailing list, and make sure you visit our Globe Mission Mosquito webpage. If you are a Globe teacher, go ahead and join our discussion group and check out our archived and upcoming webinars. and try out the app, submit your data. Remember, even if mosquitoes aren't active right now in your location, it's still a perfect time to be taking observations. Feel free to reach out to us. Let us know if you have questions. And we will stay on if anybody has questions. And I think we made it just right up to the hour. And this is something that is in our newsletter, and here is the URL to look at it. It's fascinating, and it shows the Zika Education and Prevention Project. It shows a really neat way using Google Earth Voyager that they are working with many of the participants who are on today, and some of the ways in which they are stopping the spread of Zika. So we're doing some important work here, folks. We really, really need your help. And yes, this can be accessed later. Definitely the PowerPoint presentation will be made available to you, I believe. And also you will have access to the archived webinar. Cassie does a fabulous job of putting it up on our website. It should be up by tomorrow. And it is my pleasure. And thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Liz, for jumping on. And of course, thank you, Cassie, always behind the scenes making everything work, for having this work so well. We really appreciated having so many people joining us today. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you. Thank you for making time.